from AZ Central. Former Arizona Governor Janet Napolitano reacts to Governor Katie Hobbs breaking her veto record. And for some strange reason, I kind of feel like Arizona flies under the radar just a little bit. It was sort of ground zero for corruption in 2020. And then when Cartel Katie won the governorship, it just did not add up. You could drive all around the Phoenix metro area, Maricopa County, and you're not going to see one little bit of support for Cartel Katie. You can see Kari Lake, right? She's having some different problems now. But back then, there was nothing but support for Kari Lake and Big DJT. But somehow, and we all remember, right? Cartel Katie said, "I'm not going to debate Kari Lake because she's an election denier."
You know, not only is Kari Lake, has she centered her entire platform around this election denialism, I didn't want to give her a bigger stage to do that.
Because she obviously knew the machine was going to work for her. And this is proof of that machine actually working. But my name's Eric. This channel is called Report and Opine. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. I'm absolutely begging you.
I'm begging you, please. Come on, please.
Because the algorithm is a monster. It would help me a lot. And it would cost you nothing to engage with the content a little bit. Of course, if you wanted to help me out even more and spend money, go ahead and buy my book, New York City 2020, Gotham Unglued. But let's take a look at this interview with the former governor of Arizona.
Welcome to The Briefing, your weekly debrief of top news by the Arizona Republic and azcentral.com. I'm Rafael Carran.
And just so we're crystal clear, AZ Central is a pinko commie rag.
Pinko commie rag.
They don't get the national, they're not CNN or MSNBC like that. But I mean, they're just as bad as the SF Gate or the New Yorker or any local leftist publications. Absolutely disgusting. And I have a couple posts from their Instagram pulled up we're going to take a look at on the other side of this.
Ansa, here are the top 3 things that you need to know this week. The slate of fake electors charged with trying to overturn the results of the 2020 election are set to be arraigned on May 21st. A total of 18 people.
And there's proof of the corruption in Arizona. Oh, the slate of fake electors. We're going to throw the book at them. So you wait 3.5 years to decide that, it was illegal for you to not bow to our demands.
People face 9 felony charges, including 12 state Republicans in Arizona. Several of them have asked to appear in court remotely, but not all of them may show up. The Arizona Attorney General's office said they've had a tough time serving Rudy Giuliani with notice of the charges. House Concurrent Resolution 2060, a ballot referral bill that would criminalize border crossings in Arizona, appears stalled in the legislature for now. Last week, Senator Ken Bennett raised concerns about language in the bill that would leave DACA recipients vulnerable to deportation. All it takes is one vote to kill the bill because of the Republican.
I mean, could it be any more obvious that this is just a Democratic cog in the machine? Oh, the DACA recipients. Oh, we're going to throw the book at the people who don't vote for Cartel Katie and the fake elector scheme. What, bro? What the hell are you guys talking about? I mean, this is Arizona, right? I've been there, right? I know it fairly well, right? The Phoenix metro area. But you're not going to really find this insanity on the ground. This is the media projecting it out into the ether because it's not real.
Single-seat majority. The Senate will take up the bill once again on Wednesday. If it passes, it'll head to the House on June 4th. The Supreme Court could decide the future of the resolution mine that is scheduled to blast portions of Oak Flat, an area considered sacred to Apache and other tribal groups in Arizona. Apache's Stronghold, the grassroots group fighting the construction.
Okay, full disclosure. I thought this video was going to be just the interview with the former governor, but this is just as good. They're quite clearly telling you that they're in the bag for Democrats, and who's still buying this? Maybe in California they're buying it, but I highly doubt that anywhere in Arizona people are looking at this like, oh yeah, the fake elector scam, Cartel Katie is great.
Construction of the resolution mine will turn to the High Court after the full Ninth Circuit panel declined to review the case. The Ninth Circuit cleared the way for the mine in March, ruling that it would not infringe on the Apache's First Amendment religious rights. It's been 15 years since former Arizona Governor Janet Napolitano left office.
Okay, here we go. Just for the record, he wants to pretend like they care about the Constitution and the First Amendment. Yeah, obviously they don't. But I think Now he is going to get to the interview with former AZ governor.
Current governor and fellow Democrat Katie Hobbs has broken Napolitano's veto record, leading a divided state government. Arizona Republic.
Okay, I'm sorry, but Katie Hobbs, Cartel Katie, who was installed as governor, immediately broke the veto record. And that should tell you everything you need to know, right? Why was she installed? Why did she not debate? Oh, I don't want to give her a platform. That's always their excuse. And now the buzzword with KJP, she's, well, I have to be mindful. I need to be really mindful. I have to be mindful of the election.
And I want to be incredibly mindful here. Yeah, look, going to be mindful. So I'm going to be really mindful.
Because it's all falling apart and you just, I guess that's better than saying, I'm not going to answer any of your questions because you should just do exactly what it is we say.
Reporter Stacey Barchinger sat down with the former governor to discuss her approach to bipartisanship and governance.
I oftentimes felt when I was governor, and we had to work across the aisle all the time. It was a Republican legislature, but that.
And look at this, right? You kind of miss the days of the the short-haired lady politician, right? Who can, as she just said, reach across the aisle. But those days are gone. Now, Cartel Katie goes on CNN and says, I'm not going to debate. I mean, because there's no conversation to be had. There's no political arguments to make. There's no platforms to state. It's just do what we tell you. And she comes from a simpler time.
It was more conservative overall than the millions of Arizona voters who I'd met many of on the course of the campaign, and took positions that were not necessarily reflective of the greater populace.
She respectfully broke your veto record. I think she's about to, just in her second year, break the all-time for any governor veto record. Any thoughts about that? It sounds like you think that's a good thing.
Why do you have so many vetoes? Right? You were installed to stop a Republican legislature, I suppose. But I think Arizona doesn't go full bore California, right? I mean, as soon as you cross the border, the gas drops $1 from California into Arizona. But they have a fairly sane legislature, I believe, and that's why it's not quite as bad. But obviously they are trying. So they put her in and told her to block all of this stuff. And I don't know. I don't know what kind of bills they were presenting, but I can't imagine they were that bizarre, right? Cartel Katie is the one who is clearly, I mean, she's clearly a cog in the machine. I used to work at Burger King.
Well, the governor has a veto for a reason, and the legislature doesn't like it. It can override the veto.
Look at her. Look, I don't know this lady from a ham sandwich, but she's like, she looks like she hangs out at the lesbian bar from 1988, right? Like, when they were saying, right, oh, we just want to get married, that obviously turned into you should probably cut the junk off your kid, right? So this, I don't know anything about this lady's personal life, but it's clear that she comes from an era when you could be different but still sane, and that, of course, is gone.
They never overrode me. They never even I think they maybe once tried to override me and didn't. Probably half of the bills that I vetoed, they knew I was going to veto. We called them veto bait. They just wanted to get me on record or what have you. I'd veto the bill, and then we'd get down to some serious negotiation. And I suspect with Governor Hobbs, it's the same dynamic.
There were folks who thought you as the Democratic governor would veto every Republican bill, but you didn't do that.
No,
intentionally.
No, and
because they were much more normal then. Now Cartel Katie has been assigned to stop any sanity that wants to take place in Arizona.
You can't, and you really shouldn't, unless they're all uniformly nuts, and they're not.
Just partisanship of today. People are so in their silos, in their views. How do you think that affects?
That's because of publications like AZ Central. Oh, it's so divided. Everybody's in their silo. It's because, and we'll get to it, right? You could scroll through the AZ Central Instagram and tell instantly it's a weird pinko commie rag, but you are the reason why, you are part of the reason why everything is so divided. And she comes from a simpler time where she worked across the aisle.
Divided government politics in Arizona.
Doesn't help. A legislature and a governor are like a big family. And you're going to have family members you don't like. You have family members you're really close to. When you translate that into a legislature and a governor, you're not going to agree on everything. You can't. But how do you resolve family squabbles? Somebody gives a little, somebody gets a little. What's happened today in American politics, and I think Arizona politics is no different, is that the notion of an underlying idea, and the idea here I would suggest is the idea that we are here to govern for the people of Arizona, has kind of crumbled. So little fights become big fights. Things that should be negotiable become non-negotiable. And it makes the whole thing much more difficult.
Check out Stacey's full interview and a...
Yeah, absolutely. She's right, and it looks like she's about to go to the Dykes on Bikes rally. She's part of the LGB no T agenda from 1988. But more from AZ Central. This is the Attorney General. She sued, this is real Tish James level stuff, right? Obviously, Tish, Big Shame James, Tish James, Donald Trump owes me $600 million, billion, trillion dollars. It's all completely fake. It's made up, and it should totally be ignored. If they're lucky, these people should be put under the jail at worst, but Amazon sued by Arizona Attorney General Chris Mays for alleged deceptive business practices, inflated prices. And this is exactly the same thing that Big Shame James did after she won the case against Trump and, collected $175 million and threatened to put him in jail and threatened to lock up his properties and seize all of his stuff. Then she went out and tried to sue a meat packing plant or something, even though, and I don't have this pulled up, but they pandered to the leftists. If you go on their Twitter, you can see, oh, this is sustainable and we're doing healthy food and green meat or whatever. But that wasn't enough for her. So she sued them, claiming that they were lying. And that's exactly what she's doing to Amazon, because obviously these people, and look, I'm not going to go to bat for Amazon. They are everywhere. They're kind of annoying. It does make your life a little bit easier. But that's neither here nor there. They hate success. They hate money. So they're going to sue Amazon. And then this is her obviously being part of the machine, telling you that we are filing charges for the fraudulent elector scheme. It's all made up, and you can see it in the comments. Shouldn't this woman be focused on current problems instead of issues from 3.5 years ago? Desperate Democrats, more votes for Trump. Yet everybody sees through it, but they are quite clearly desperate. And I just made a video about desperate California Democrats. There were some New Yorker. I mean, obviously this is the Coastal Elite Chaos channel, and the places I know the most are San Francisco and New York, so that's kind of what I focus on. But I'm also quite familiar with Phoenix, Arizona.
After the general election on November 3rd, 2020, the defendants...
Bro, she's even talking like a bot. After the general election. Oh, the fake electors. They just make these things up and throw them at you and expect you to believe it.
And other unindicted co-conspirators raised false claims of widespread voter fraud in Arizona to pressure...
Yep, and there's the weasel word, widespread. Because you can never prove that, right? If you find some fraudulent stuff here and there, oh, well, that's not enough. Yeah. We found a guy sleeping in his car with 300 mail-in ballots and drugs, pills, guns, outside the 7-Eleven in Southern California.
Yeah, Mike and Jared, many wondering tonight, so was it a voter fraud scheme or something else? Investigators are now trying to determine why it is that more than 300 recall ballots were found inside a man's car at this 7-Eleven in Torrance. More than 300 mail-in ballots for the governor's recall race were found inside a car parked at this Torrance 7-Eleven with a man sleeping inside of it.
Right, he was certainly just going to drop those ballots in the mail for scumbag greaseball bang your wife Gavin Newsom, because we can't have, the citizens of California can't have the blackface of white supremacy as a governor. That, of course, is a different story.
Elections officials to change the outcome of a transparent, free, and fair democratic election.
And it will never, just for the obviously it will never be enough. These people constantly complain, and you could capitulate, but they're just going to ask for more. You give them an inch, they take a mile. But my point here is they throw in this phrase, this word widespread, right? So what's widespread? That's 51%. And obviously you could catch a little bit, but a whole bunch is going to fall through the cracks. So it can never actually be widespread. But this person works for the machine. She is an awful. Cartel Katie Hobbs is an awful.
The awfuls, the affluent white female liberals in the Democrat Party.
They're absolutely despicable. And I've said it several times now, but it's really going around, right? You got Charlemagne the Fraud at The View saying, we got to protect democracy. Now, of course, we got Amber Rose coming out for Big DJT. So it's a complete mess, and it's going on everywhere. You can't you can't blame the awfuls by themselves. You can't blame the black people by themselves. You can't blame the people you can't talk about by themselves, even though they said, it's white rural rage. Now, you can't blame any of these people on their own, but I did make the joke, and I will make it one more time, that it seems as if the only adults in the room are the Asians.
Those efforts ultimately failed when officials stood firm, followed their statutory duties, and officially certified Arizona's election on November 30th, 2020. The defendant Republican presidential electors, allegedly plotting with additional defendants, then voted for Mr. Trump and Vice President Pence on December 14th, 2020, falsely claiming to be the duly elected and qualified electors for President and Vice President of the United States from the state of Arizona. These defendants deceived the citizens of Arizona.
Yeah, okay. Whatever, lady. It's all complete word salad. You have come up with this scam, scheme, whatever, 3.5 years later, at the perfect time to call it a crime to not believe our nonsense. And don't worry, because Cartel Katie, put you up to this, or she's going to protect you, or whatever it is. But there's a little bit more from AZ Central. This guy, whatever, I don't know. I see him on my Instagram feed all the time. He's obviously another cog in the machine. He's a person of color. And as I understand it, I saw this once, but it's worth rewatching. They're basically going to decide whether illegal immigration should be illegal, right? They always want to overcomplicate these things. We need to figure this out. It's a very complicated situation. Well, it's not really. I think we've had laws for decades, right? For a long time, but you threw that out the window, and now you're trying to change the rules and pretend that it's all super complicated. And here's the caption. Arizona voters could decide in November whether to criminalize migrant crossing along the state's border with Mexico. Whether to criminalize migrant crossing. So is that just a play on words? Are you going to now officially call it illegal immigration? Or are you still going to call it migration and asylum seekers? And now you're going to decide whether or not something that has been illegal for decades is still going to be illegal? Republicans in the state legislature expect to pass the House Concurrent Resolution 2060 along party lines.
Arizona voters could decide whether to criminalize migrant crossings along the state's border with Mexico. It's part of Republicans' efforts in the legislature to keep border security front and center this year. Republican lawmakers in Arizona are set to override a governor's veto to empower local law enforcement to enforce U.S. immigration laws. It's part of their efforts to even the playing field come November. An abortion measure, which has already gathered enough signatures to get on the ballot, is expected to turn out Democratic voters. Republicans are now poised to send a ballot measure on border security, an issue they pull better in. HCR 2060, also known as Secure the Border Act, would make it a state misdemeanor to cross the Arizona border in between ports of entry. It would also allow local police to arrest and deport migrants.
My constituents are already fearful.
I forget her name, Wendy something or other. I think she's kind of based, though.
And this is because we have unlimited, unchecked, mass, illegal immigration across our border.
HCR 2060 is expected to pass the legislature along party lines. But even if Arizona voters approve the ballot measure in November, there's no guarantee yet it could go in effect. The Secure the Border Act is modeled after Texas's Senate Bill 4. That law is held up in federal courts from taking effect, and the Supreme Court will likely decide whether it's constitutional.
Okay, yeah, I'm genuinely curious if that weird little effeminate Latino guy knows what he's doing. He might know. I always go back and forth whether this is incompetence or evil, and he genuinely might not know. But I think the people at AZ Central know exactly what they're doing. I think they know exactly who they work for, and I think Janet Napolitano, the former governor, who is saying, I mean, the left, right, the left today would call her right wing, because the days of sanity and a little bit of normalcy and a little bit of difference of opinion on policy are long gone. And when you have comments like this, top one, alternate headline, voters to criminalize crime. Everybody sees through it, but they do it anyways.